The instant a fish reaches the stage, a heavy blow on the head stops its flapping. Boys and girls are waiting to seize and carry it ashore, to be split and cured, a process I can better describe than when at the Salmon Falls, as there is at the Cascades, simply hindrance to the salmon's ascent. Of course, vast numbers escapes the nets. 40 miles above this fishery is another obstruction, the Dales, where the river forces its way through a mass of basaltic rocks in numerous channels, some of them appearing as if hewn by human hands. Other portage has to be made here, a neat little town having grown up in the consequence of the transshipment. The journey from steamer to steamer is accomplished in stages, the heavy goods being hauled by mule and ox teams. The road lies over a steep ridge of hills to the conjunction of Deschutes or Fall River, with the Columbia fishing at the Dales is much the same as at the Cascades. Great numbers of salmon turn off and ascend the Snake River to be captured at the Great Shoshone Falls by the Snake and Bangkok Indians. We follow on the vanguard of the swimming army, passing numberless tributaries up which detachments make their way, right and left, into the heart of the country. Supplies for the tribes living near the different streams, to the Great Falls of the Columbia, the Kettle Falls. Why so named is not very clear. These falls, except when the river is at the highest flood, form an impassable barrier to the salmon's progress. The distance from the sea is about 700 miles, and the first arrivals are usually about the middle of June. The winter quarters of the Boundary Commission were about 2 miles above the falls and close to all of the trading posts of the Hudson's Bay Company. Fort Colville. The gravelly plateau on which the trading post stands, together with one or two houses belonging to old employees, was clearly once a lake bottom. The water at some remote period filling the lake appears to have broken its way out through the rocks at the falls and left this flat, dry land. Patches of wheat and barley are grown, but the soil is far too poor to repay the labor of cultivation. About 3 weeks preceding the arrival of the salmon, Indians began to assemble from all directions. Cavalcades may be seen day after day winding their way down the plain, and as the savage when he travels takes with him all his worldly wealth, wives, children, dogs, horses, lodges, weapons, and skins, the turnout is rather novel. Smaller children are packed with the baggage on the backs of horses, which are driven by the squaws, who always ride astride like the men. The elder girls and boys, 3 or 4 on a horse, ride with their mothers, whilst the men, with stouter youths, drive the bands of horses that run loose ahead of the progression. A pack of prick-eared curs, simply tamed prairie wolves, are always in attendance. A level piece of ground overlooking the falls, the descent from which to the rocks is by a zigzag path down a nearly vertical cliff, is rapidly covered with lodges of all shapes and sizes. The squaws do the work pertaining to camping and are literally hewers of wood and drawers of water. The men, who are all men at the fishery under one chief, whom they designate the salmon chief, at once commence work, some in repairing the drying sheds which are placed on the rocks, as are also numbers of lodges. At the foot of the zigzag, others are busy making or mending immense wicker hampers, about 30 feet in circumference and 12 feet in depth. Little groups are dragging down huge trees locked clear of their branches. rolling, twisting, and tumbling them over the rocks, to be fixed at last by massive boulders. The ends hanging over the foaming water, not unlike so many giblets. These trees being secure and in their right places, the next work is to hang the wicker baskets to them, which is a risky and most difficult job, but many willing hands and long experience work wonders. With strong ropes of twisted bark, the baskets are at last securely suspended. By this time, the river begins to flood rapidly and soon washes over the rocks where the trees are fastened and into the basket, which is soon in the midst of the waterfall, being so contrived as to be easily accessible from the rocks not washed by the flood. Whilst awaiting the coming salmon, the scene is one of great revel. Horse racing, gambling, love-making, dancing, and diversions of all sorts occupy the singular assembly, for at these annual gatherings, where all jointly labor in catching and curing the winter's supply of salmon, feuds and dislikes are for the time laid by, or as they figuratively express it, the hatchet is buried. The medicine man, doctors and conjurers of the different tribes busily work their arms and incantations to ensure an abundant run of fish. One of the illustrations is drawn from a photograph of the falls. The Indians at first steadily refused to allow the photographer and his machine to come near the falls, declaring it a box of bad medicine that would surely drive every salmon away, and not until an old Romish priest, who was at the trading post, explained it to them, did they permit a photograph to be taken. The watchers announce the welcome tidings of the salmon arrival, and the business begins. The baskets are hung in places where past experience has taught the Indians salmon generally leap in their attempts to clear the falls. The first few that arrive are frequently speared from the rocks. They are in such vast numbers during the height of the run that one could not well throw a stone into the water at the base of the falls without hitting a fish. 50 and more may be seen in the air at a time, leaping over wicker traps, but failing to clear the salmon leap, fall back and are caged. In each basket, 2 naked Indians are stationed all day long, and as they are under a heavy water, all frequent relays are necessary. Salmon 3 or 4 at a time in rapid succession tumble into the basket. These Indians thrust their fingers under their gills, strike the fish on the head with a heavy club, and then fling them on the rocks. I have known 300 salmon landed from one basket betwixt sunrise and sunset, varying in weight from 20 to 75 pounds. From the heaps of fish piled on the rocks, boys and girls will carry and drag them back to the squaws seated around the curing house. With sharp knives, they rip the salmon open, twist off the head, and cleverly remove the backbone. Then, hanging them on poles, clothe the roofs of sheds, the sides of which are open. They dry them slowly, small fires being kept constantly smoldering on the floors. The smoke serves to keep away the flies, and perhaps also aids in the preservation of the fish. The only portions eaten by the Indians during the catching are the heads, backbones, roes, livers, which are roasted, skewered on sticks. When thoroughly dried, the fish are packed in bales made of rush mats, each bale weighing about 50 pounds. The bales being tightly lashed with bark ropes, packing in bales of equal weight facilitates an equitable division of the take. Horses are purposely brought to carry the fish back to winter quarters, and 2 bales are easily packed on each horse. The fishing season lasts for about 2 months. Then the spoils are divided, and the place abandoned to its wonted quietude, until the following summer brings it with it another harvest. During the drying, silicious sand is blown over the fish, and of course adheres to it. Constantly chewing, the sanded salmon wears the teeth as if filed down, which I at first imagined them to be, until the true cause was discovered. I have an underjaw in my possession whereon the teeth are quite level with the bony sockets of the jaw, worn away by the flinty sands.